I want to make one prediction. I'm not calling around. I predict that when I meet Joe Frazier, this will be like a good amateur fighting a real professional. This will be like a kid out of the Olympics meeting the fastest heavyweight champion that ever lived.
They called him the greatest, a man whose fists could silence legends of the sport and whose voice could shake governments. However, behind the bright lights and roaring crowds, a darker truth was quietly taking shape. Initially, the world thought it knew Ali's final battle, but new revelations paint a far more complicated picture, one that raises unsettling questions about what truly happened in his final years. And now, Ali's story is never the same. The rise of a legend before he ever called himself the greatest. Muhammad Ali was just a skinny kid from Louisville, pedaling an old bicycle through its segregated streets. He was born Cassius Marcellus Clay Jr. on January 17, 1942, and was the son of a sign painter and a domestic worker. His early life was ordinary, but nothing about his future turned out to be. The first glimmer of what he would become arrived in a strangely ordinary way. When Ali was about 12, his bicycle was stolen. He complained to Officer Joe Martin and even vowed he'd get the thief. Martin, a Louisville policeman who also coached youth boxing, replied half-jokingly that Ali should learn to fight before confronting anyone. Instead of scolding him, Martin enrolled him in the Police Athletic League's boxing program, and this small, joking nudge ignited a 27-year career built on training, discipline, and a near-obsessive hunger for speed and rhythm. The first glimmer of what he would become arrived in a strangely ordinary way. When Cassius was about 12, his bicycle was stolen. He complained to Officer Joe Martin and even vowed he'd get the thief. Martin, a Louisville policeman who also coached youth boxing, replied half-jokingly that Clay should learn to fight before confronting anyone. Instead of scolding him, Martin enrolled the boy in the Police Athletic League's boxing program. That small, joking nudge ignited a 27-year career built on training, discipline, and a near-obsessive hunger for speed and rhythm. By 1960, Ali had won the Olympic light heavyweight gold in Rome and made his professional boxing debut against Tony Hunsaker on October 29, 1960, winning the bout in 6 rounds. His speed and trash talk rewired the public's expectations of a heavyweight. On February 25, 1964, in one of the era's greatest upsets, he defeated the heavily favored bruiser Sonny Liston in 6 rounds to become heavyweight champ, and soon after embraced Islam and the name Muhammad Ali, a decision that turned him into a cultural as well as a sporting figure. His footwork and trademark quote, "float like a butterfly and sting like a bee," made every bout. Despite this, Ali's rise to fame wasn't smooth, and the consequences of his convictions soon reached far beyond the ring. In 1967, at the height of the Vietnam War, he refused induction into the United States military on religious and conscientious objector grounds, declaring, "I ain't got no quarrel with those Vietnamese guerrilla fighters." The decision sparked a national uproar. He was convicted of draft evasion, fined for $10,000 and sentenced. But it did not end there. Boxing authorities stripped him of his title and suspended his license. Luckily, Ali stayed out of prison while appeals proceeded and eventually returned to the ring on October 26, 1970, though the legal fight continued until the United States Supreme Court overturned his conviction on June 28, 1971. Inside the ring, Ali evolved into something the sport had never seen. Most heavyweights stood flat-footed, trading punches until someone broke. But Ali? He danced. His feet skimmed the canvas. His hands snapped forward with a sting that echoed through arenas. He called his style floating like a butterfly and stinging like a bee. Nobody could hit him, but he could hit everybody. His confidence, rhythm, and speed pushed boxing into a new era. Fans didn't only watch the fights, they watched the show. Ale spent the rest of that decade and the next fighting in matches that would become part of sports history. He faced George Foreman in the Rumble in the Jungle, where he used his rope-a-dope strategy to wear down a man who seemed unbeatable. He fought Joe Frazier 3 unforgettable times, pushing each other beyond the limits of endurance. The Thrilla in Manila nearly drained the lives out of both men, yet it remains one of the most remarkable displays of grit ever seen in a boxing ring. Every victory, every headline, and every moment of conflict carved his legacy deeper. The boy who once cried over a stolen bicycle had become a global icon. His rise wasn't slow or steady, it was meteoric, unexplainable and bold, almost as if destiny had been guiding him from the start. And what the world didn't know yet was that his journey was far from over. The biggest chapters, the triumphs, the controversies, and the battles yet to come were waiting just beyond the spotlight. Nothing could stop him in the ring, yet beyond the ropes awaited a fight far fiercer. His convictions, identity, and courage would soon challenge a nation and define his legacy forever. While Muhammad Ali's fists made him famous, it was his voice that made him unforgettable. The same confidence he carried into the ring followed him into every conversation, interview, and protest. To many people, it was thrilling to watch a young heavyweight champion speak with the kind of boldness most athletes avoided. But to others, it felt dangerous. Ali never hid how he saw the world, and once he stepped into the spotlight, the world couldn't ignore him anymore. His activism didn't begin with the Vietnam War draft refusal, even though that decision became the flashpoint of his public battles. It started earlier, in 1964, when he joined the Nation of Islam at a time when America was already tense with racial division. His decision felt to many people like a slap against the idea of blending into the mainstream, but when he announced he would no longer answer to Cassius Clay, calling that birth name a reminder of a history he wanted to rise above, it was clear he wasn't trying to please anyone. He was trying to define himself, and that fierce independence made him powerful, but it also made him a target. Politicians questioned him, journalists challenged him, and even some civil rights leaders weren't sure what to make of him. Mainstream figures, like NAACP leader Roy Wilkins, initially criticized his Nation of Islam ties and provocative rhetoric, while others later came to support or privately respect him. Recognizing this complexity prevents oversimplifying his story. While much of the mainstream civil rights movement focused on integration, Ali embraced a philosophy rooted in self-respect, self-protection, and standing apart from the systems that oppressed Black Americans. His refusal to fit neatly into the boxes others wanted for him made every word he spoke feel even more explosive. What people often forget is how young he was at the time. Ali was in his mid-20s, facing prison time. Public attacks and opportunities were slipping through his fingers. But even with the odds stacked against him, he didn't retreat. He traveled the country, giving speeches at colleges and community centers. He talked about faith, the cost of war, and the value of standing for something even when it hurt. Students lined up to hear him. The younger generation saw in him a courage they wanted for themselves. The very thing that was supposed to silence him made his voice louder. By the time the Supreme Court overturned his conviction in 1971, the world had shifted. Ali's stance didn't seem reckless anymore. It was now considered brave. He returned to boxing to fight Jerry Quarry on October 26, 1970, while his legal appeals were still pending, but it was clear he had nothing to worry about. His activism didn't stop at American borders either. Over the decades, he expanded his humanitarian reach, traveling across Africa and the Middle East, meeting leaders, supporting anti-apartheid causes, and taking part in relief work. One of the most powerful chapters of Muhammad Ali's activism came in his sustained opposition to apartheid and his 1993 trip to South Africa. By this point in his career, Ali had long used his platform to speak out against racism and injustice, even addressing the United Nations Special Committee Against Apartheid in the 1970s. His visit to South Africa in April 1993, however, came at a particularly volatile moment when the country was navigating its post-apartheid future, and the assassination of popular ANC leader Chris Hani on April 10th, which had sent shockwaves of grief and fear through the nation. Arriving in the days after Hani's death, Ali attended the leader's funeral at FNB Stadium in Soweto, met with grieving families, and shared messages of solidarity that many found profoundly moving. During that trip, Ali also met Nelson Mandela and Ansent, expressed his condolences to the ANC leadership. A letter from Ali to Mandela, dated mid-April 1993 and typed on Muhammad Ali in South Africa stationery, is preserved in public auction records and press reports. Contemporary accounts note that crowds in South Africa greeted Ali not just as a sporting hero, but as a moral ally. Reporters described scenes of people chanting his name at Hani's funeral, viewing his presence as a powerful gesture of international solidarity during a perilous moment. These public displays helped reshape Ali's image worldwide. As the young man once labeled a radical, was increasingly recognized as a global figure who used his fame to support the oppressed. However, Ali's anti-apartheid work didn't stop with that trip. He consistently used his celebrity status to spotlight racial injustice, making public statements at the United Nations and undertaking humanitarian visits across Africa, later extending his efforts to other international missions. His readiness to take politically unpopular stands and to be present where suffering was most acute redefined his legacy, and he was remembered not only as a legendary boxer, but as a global ambassador for dignity, empathy, and resistance to systemic racism. The path from outcast to hero didn't happen overnight. It happened slowly, through every speech, every stand, and every risk he took when he didn't have to. His story shows that a legacy isn't built only on victories. Sometimes it grows through the storms we refuse to run from. Ali faced his storms head-on, and somehow, each one revealed another part of who he was. A champion in the ring, a loud and stubborn voice when silence was expected, a man willing to lose everything for what he believed was right. What remains most powerful about Muhammad Ali's activism is that he never claimed to be perfect. He simply refused to be quiet, and this refusal shaped the way generations think about courage and identity. Long after his gloves were hung up, his words continued to echo, and the world he left behind is still learning from the man who once said he would shake up the world, then went on to prove he meant every word. As the years passed and his strength began to wane, Ali's activism became inseparable from his personal life, each public effort reflecting a private struggle the world had yet to fully see. The final battle: Parkinson's and decline. By the late 1970s, the world could see that Muhammad Ali was beginning to slow down. His once lightning-fast footwork had softened. His voice carried a heavier weight, and his movements no longer had the effortless rhythm that had made him the greatest. For decades, Ali had been the picture of strength and vitality, dazzling crowds and moving through life with energy few could match. But the first signs of a new, quieter battle were appearing, one that no amount of training or willpower could fight off. In 1984, Ali went public with the news that He had been diagnosed with Parkinson's disease, a progressive neurological disorder that would shape the next 34 years of his life. Doctors had been observing him for years, noting his slower speech and the stiffness creeping into his walk. Initially called Parkinson's syndrome, the diagnosis came as a shock to fans who had grown up seeing him leap, dodge, and dance through rings across the globe. The boxer's peak was clearly behind him, yet Ali refused to disappear from public life. He continued to make appearances, gave interviews, and maintained his characteristic charm and humor, showing that even as his body faltered, his spirit remained unbroken. Parkinson gradually tightened its grip, and as time passed, Ali's health steadily declined. He faced complications from spinal stenosis surgeries and battled infections repeatedly. Pneumonia became a constant battle, most notably in 2015 when he fell critically ill. Walking, which was once a second nature, became an effort requiring assistance. But even through the slowing of his movements, his eyes retained the sharp intelligence and warmth that had defined him since youth. Friends and family often remarked that while his body weakened, his mind, his humor, and his presence that had inspired millions remained intact. In 1996, Ali, using his strength and determination, lit the Olympic cauldron in Atlanta. The sight of the once unstoppable fighter moving slowly but deliberately, torch held high, became one of the most iconic images of modern sports history. As Ali's strength faded, a single question shadowed his decline. Was Parkinson's to blame? Or had years of punishing blows carved a deeper, irreversible cost into his legendary body? For years, fans and commentators speculated whether Ali's decades in the ring, taking countless blows to the head, had caused his neurological decline. In 2022, neurologists who had treated Ali for years provided clarity. They confirmed that he had idiopathic Parkinson's disease, a typical form of the illness, not directly caused by boxing. While years of fighting may have posed risks, his condition was medically distinct. Doctors observed the classic symptoms including tremors, stiffness, and a gradual slowing of movement. Ali had young-onset, levodopa-responsive Parkinson's, proving that his disease was not simply a consequence of life in the ring. Medical treatments offered some relief as medication helped manage symptoms, and regular care kept infections and complications in check. Ali became a shadow of his past self. He spent this time of his life reminiscing about historic fights, quoting poetry, and reflecting on his activism and humanitarian work with a calm certainty. While fans mourned the physical decline of the fighter, they also celebrated the enduring spirit of the man. Muhammad Ali's decline was gradual and unavoidable, but through it all, he remained unmistakably himself. The tremors and stiffness may have marked the passage of time, but they could not dim the light that had made him one of the most recognizable, influential, and beloved figures in modern history. His life after boxing became a lesson in resilience, showing that greatness is not measured only in victories or speed, but in the ability to face the inevitable with courage, love, and dignity. As Ali's body grew weaker and each day became a struggle, the world watched a legend confront his toughest fight yet, unaware that the final chapter of his extraordinary life was about to unfold. The end of an era, Ali's passing and funeral. By early June 2016, Muhammad Ali's health had taken a serious turn. He was fragile. He was admitted to a hospital in Scottsdale, Arizona, where he was hospitalized and suffering from a respiratory illness. At first, doctors described his condition as fair, giving friends, family, and fans hope that he might pull through, as he had from so many challenges before. But within days, his condition worsened, catching everyone by surprise. His family gathered at his side, the weight of his years, struggles, and triumphs hanging in the air. On the evening of June 3, 2016, surrounded by those he loved most, Muhammad Ali passed away at the age of 74, with the official cause being septic shock, a severe reaction to infection following his respiratory complications. The news spread instantly. The world had lost a hero, a boxer, an activist, an icon, a man who had floated like a butterfly and stung like a bee, a man whose presence had defined a generation. Ali's death was the #1 trending topic on Twitter for over 12 hours and on Facebook for several days. Tributes were paid to the fallen hero. BET played their documentary, Muhammad Ali, Made in Miami. ESPN played 4 hours of non-stop commercial-free coverage of Ali. News networks such as ABC News, BBC, CNN, and Fox News also covered him extensively. Fans from every corner of the world shared memories, pictures, and videos. Tributes poured in from leaders and celebrities alike. Former Presidents Barack Obama and now President Donald Trump both publicly acknowledged his passing, reflecting on his unmatched influence on sport, culture, and society. Athletes who had grown up idolizing him, including Mike Tyson, LeBron James, and Serena Williams, spoke openly about the lessons he had imparted, both in the ring and in life. For many, Ali's death was more than the loss of a sports legend. It was the moment a guiding light dimmed. The world paused to remember a man who had predicted that his own life would be a teaching moment, who had warned that every fight, every word, every action carried lessons about perseverance, dignity, and justice. Ali had always approached life with purpose, and that included the planning of his final journey. Long before his health declined, he had made decisions about his funeral. He wanted it to be open to everyone, a reflection of the life he had lived and the people he had touched. His wishes reflected a humility that contrasted sharply with the flamboyance of his public persona. When he passed in 2016, those plans guided how people chose to remember him. In Louisville that year, a series of services celebrated his life, with the first being an Islamic janazah ceremony at Freedom Hall, paying homage to his faith and his deep connection to Islam. Hundreds, then thousands, filed through the venue, each person carrying memories of a man who had inspired courage, laughter, and reflection. Over the next several days, Louisville became a city of remembrance. Tens of thousands lined the streets to pay their respects. Ali's hearse traveled slowly, passing his childhood home, the gym where he first laced up gloves, and the streets now bearing his name. Muhammad Ali Boulevard became a river of silent faces, waving hands and tears, a living tribute to the man who had once predicted, with characteristic confidence, that he would shake up the world. People came from all walks of life, some who had never met him, others who had grown up under his shadow, and all understood they were witnessing history. The procession moved to the KFC Yum Center, where a public memorial welcomed thousands more to gather and pay their respects. Speeches from figures like Bill Clinton, Billy Crystal, and other friends, colleagues, and admirers filled the hall with stories, laughter, and shared moments of grief. It was a celebration of life. The final chapter of Muhammad Ali's life was at Cave Hill Cemetery in Louisville, a resting place he had chosen long before his death. Known for its serene, historic grounds and towering stone walls, the cemetery offered both peace and dignity. Ali joined the roster of notable figures laid to rest there, including Colonel Sanders, Yet his presence transformed the site into a place of pilgrimage. The funeral was private, attended by family and close friends, but it carried the weight of thousands who had gathered in the streets to honor him. Bob Gunnell, Ali's family spokesman, explained that Ali had wished for people from all walks of life to attend his funeral, a wish his loved ones ensured was realized. Even in death, Ali's life remained inclusive, bridging communities and generations, reflecting the philosophy that had guided him from his first Olympic medal to his final days. During the services, the man behind the athlete was clear to everyone. Ali's humility, humor, and bravery shone through every moment. Friends and family shared stories of how he faced his final days teaching and laughing until the very end. Even as he neared death, he showed the confidence, charm, and humanity that had always defined him. His passing brought deep sadness, but also admiration, as people saw that a life full of triumphs, struggles, controversies, and comebacks had left lessons far beyond the boxing ring. The public memorial mirrored the global reach of his influence. From television broadcasts to social media, tributes poured in ceaselessly. Fans created murals, held vigils, and visited his childhood home. People shared how Ali had inspired them through his fights, his activism, or simply his example of confidence and resilience. Leaders, athletes, entertainers, and ordinary people alike recognized a singular truth. Muhammad Ali's life had touched the world, and his passing marked the end of an era. Even in death, Ali's legacy remained vibrant. The careful planning of his funeral, the inclusive nature of his memorials, and the reverence of thousands lining Louisville's streets underscored the deep connection between the man and the people. From Freedom Hall to Muhammad Ali Boulevard, from the KFC Yum Center to Cave Hill Cemetery, every step of his final journey reflected a life lived fully, fiercely, and with purpose. Those who witnessed it understood that while the man had left the world, the lessons he imparted, the courage he embodied, and the spirit he inspired would endure. Even in his last moments, surrounded by family and loved ones, Muhammad Ali exemplified the qualities that had defined him: grace, strength, and unshakable purpose. From his first steps into a Louisville gym to his final rest at Cave Hill Cemetery, Ali's life was a journey of triumph, trial, and transformation. The streets of Louisville, arenas around the world, and the hearts of millions carried him forward, ensuring that though he had left the stage, his legend would never fade. Do you believe the world truly understood Ali while he was alive? Was his greatest battle inside the ring, outside it, or something far deeper? And do you think the truth about his final days has fully been told, or is something still missing? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and share.